morning. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. While people are joining, if you don't mind, please in chat, share where you're joining us from today. I know this was one of our presentations that made it nationwide, so I'd love to hear where you're joining us from today because, as we all know, walkability is not just in Massachusetts; it's everywhere. So thank you for joining and sharing that information in chat with us today. Um, so familiarize yourself with the screen, just some logistics. You all are using chat now, so please feel free to use that to comment as our presenter goes through his presentation today. If you have questions, it'll be a lot easier for us to keep track of those questions if you put them in the Q&A section. So please use that for your questions, and we'll make sure we get those answered for you as the presentation moves forward. All right. So, thank you again for joining us. It's a pleasure meeting you all. My name is Antron Watson. I'm with AARP Massachusetts. And as you may already know, we're fierce advocates for what matters most to older adults, from ensuring accessible, affordable housing and healthcare to protecting vital programs like Social Security and Medicare. We know how important it is to lift up the voices of older adults and shaping the communities we all live in. But advocacy isn't only about policy. It's really about practical, joyful action. That's why we offer engaging programs like this one today, where we can come together, learn, and be a part of something bigger. Today's series, this is actually the second part of our series, where we teamed up with Walk Massachusetts, focusing on walkability and the tools and strategies that really can support this work and how we can make our neighborhoods safer, more connected, and easier to get around on foot. Walkable communities support healthy living, improve social connections, and boost our overall well-being. And the best part, getting involved can be fun and deeply rewarding. So, thank you all for showing up, not just for today's program, but for your role in really building communities where we can all thrive. If you would like to learn more about AARP, our advocacy, or volunteer opportunities, you can always visit aarp.org/MA. And I feel like I've said a lot. I've said enough. And I want to really get us into the content of the day. And I'm going to turn it over to Johnny from Walk Massachusetts.
Thank you, Antron. Welcome, everyone. My name is Johnny Gomez-Pereira. I'm a program manager at Walk Massachusetts, and I'll be presenting today on strategies and tools. So I'm going to jump right in, and y'all let me know if you can see my slides. Okay. Can folks see that? Perfect. All right. So yeah, today's presentation or webinar will be on strategies and tools. This is an introduction to planning and implementing a walk audit. So just to kick it off, get us grounded in who we are, Walk Massachusetts is committed to making walking safer and easier, to encourage better health, a cleaner environment, and more vibrant communities. Our vision of Massachusetts is a people where walking, no matter their race, identity, age, ability, or lived experience, feel safe, connected, and valued on our streets and sidewalks. Yep. Just want to make sure I'm on the right slide. So our values, yeah, we believe in community, right? So we believe in the power of community. Walkable places foster community spirit, vibrancy, and health. Our advocacy is community driven and community empowering. We also embrace equity. We embrace an inclusive definition of walkability that accounts for the lived experiences of all people. We prioritize working in places that have experienced historic disinvestment. So when we talk about equity, we also mean access, whether that's language or for folks that want to walk around, roll around, people get around in different ways. And then lastly, partnership. Walk Massachusetts, we never work alone. We always have a partner community, or we partner with community members, local nonprofits, municipal and state agency staff, and elected officials to achieve common goals. So walkability, what do we mean by walkability? So I briefly mentioned walking. We're looking to expand the definition of what it means for a place to be walkability. That might include, folks that might use mobility assistive devices like motorized wheelchairs or analog wheelchairs where folks are using their arms to get around. Some people just use different ways, but we all share the same space, right? And we can see a picture of that here. The goal is to create environments that make the decision to walk easier, safer, and more inviting. So now we'll jump into the tools and strategies, which is we'll start off by finding a purpose for our walk audit. So it's important to have a purpose going into your walk audit. To finding your purpose, there are a couple of reasons why you might be interested in starting a walk audit. One of them might be participating in a formal public input process, right? Asking if there are upcoming projects that are seeking public input. These can also include capital improvement projects, major infrastructure projects, and other municipal planning efforts, such as transportation or mobility plans, ADA transition plans, so American with Disabilities transition plans, or open space and recreation plans. The goal is to make, again, the public realm as accessible as possible for folks. Secondly, we can contribute to another possibility for defining your purpose could be contributing to a capital improvement plan. If there is a funded project that needs public input, your walk audit could contribute to that. So once you've completed your walk audit, you can share your data and analysis by submitting comment letters and speaking at public meetings. A third reason that people might conduct a walk audit is to submit complaints or recommendations. Can your data and audit solve or highlight and solve safety concerns and provide quick fixes? Depending on your area of concern, you could submit reports to your local planning department, Department of Public Works, and or city council councilors and representatives in order to have some changes made in your community. Another one would be to build coalitions. Walk audits are an excellent opportunity to connect with other advocates who are concerned about similar issues. So walk audits can also be great community engagement tools that can allow you to create coalitions to push for increased access and improve mobility in public spaces for all folks, not just pedestrians, but also cyclists, because we also sometimes share the space. There can be short-term changes and system changes in the long term by making these coalitions. And lastly, your goal can sort of be to make the change. Could your walk audit result in demonstration projects in the neighborhood? By creating these demonstrations, you may be able to implement a short-term / low budget project that might help you achieve buy-in in your community. So we'll move on to planning your route. So once you've identified the problem you're trying to solve and what you should include in your route to help you do that, you can begin putting together your route. I'll be sharing a tool in the next slide that you can use to map your route that you can share with your walk audit participants. Creating your route, we recommend at Walk Massachusetts choosing a realistic route. That's usually about a mile. That usually takes about an hour to an hour and a half to complete. With that amount of time, you're able to provide enough time for participants to stop throughout the process and make observations. You can use tools such as Google Maps to create a draft of your map and then distribute that amongst your participants. And then you can also preview data before you actually get out there on the ground via Massachusetts Department of Transportation's Crash Portal. So this is Google Maps. This is a map that I made earlier this week of a walk audit that I participated in. And you can see those black lines that outline a route that I walked. At the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to see that the length of this walk is 1.37 kilometers. That's about 0.85 miles. It's not a full mile. A full mile is 1.6 kilometers. And you want to keep it, again, to a mile just so that you give enough time and space for people to actually engage with the elements on the street that you're walking. So Google Maps is a free and accessible way for you to create a draft of your route. I would encourage you to recall your purpose. Are you trying to have better transit access in certain part of your neighborhood? Are you passing by small businesses or schools? If so, it might be worth inviting owners or school leaders to participate if they're along your route. They can provide specific insight that we as walk audit participants or leaders might not necessarily see because we're not inhabiting that space day to day. Now, collecting data before your walk audit. So I mentioned the mass.crash portal, and I'll use these next couple of slides just to talk us through how to use it. And I just wanted to highlight that more and more communities are making their crash data available via crash portals. So Here we can see a screenshot of the crash portal that MassDOT puts together. In Massachusetts, local police departments share this crash data with MassDOT. So whenever there's a collision, a crash, a fatality, police are required to share that with MassDOT. So you'll be able to find that information. If you know a location is particularly treacherous or hostile towards pedestrians or cyclists, you can confirm that by looking at the MassDOT crash portal. It might also prove useful to use this before you get out there, just so that you have some figures or just a rough outline of what's out there before actually starting your walk audit. So when you go to this website, I have the link listed at the bottom of the slide. You would go there and then you would click on interactive dashboards. That slide, or once you click on that link, it will provide you with a number of different dashboards. There is the serious injury information, the fatal crash information, which is what we primarily use at WalkMassachusetts for our annual fatal crash report, where we identify trends statewide. If you're interested in learning more about fatal crashes throughout the Commonwealth, you can go to walkmass.org/crash-reports. We've been publishing these reports since 2021. So once you click on the Explore button there, it'll bring you to the MassDOT fatal crash portal. So there are a couple of things that I want to highlight here. And this example that we're looking at is from Somerville, Massachusetts. So you can see on the left-hand side of the screen that you can filter by region, year, town, age, time, type of crash. So that's cyclist, pedestrian, or vehicle. In this example, I clicked on the red walking icon that provided more detailed information on the context of the crash, such as the victim of the crash, which was a pedestrian, the date, the time, the age, the sex, and kind of pedestrian crash. So they categorize it into these different sort of buckets, and this one was a pedestrian. I think this is really useful if you're considering having a walk audit at a different time of day, or if you know a particular location is challenging, maybe in the early morning hours when people might be commuting, there's low light conditions, or in the evening when there is little to no visibility, let's say streetlights are missing. This is important to sort of have that level of specificity just so that you can refer to it as you make your recommendations. So with this example, I just want to show you guys what came out of some of the advocacy that folks in Somerville were moving for. So we saw that crash was in 2019, I believe, and this is that exact site. So we can see here, the slide shows what the intersection looked like on the crash portal prior to any redesign. There's a yellow light that we're able to see. However, there are other pedestrian safety elements that could be implemented to make this experience safer or more comfortable for those who have no other option but to use this route. It's important to note that at the end of this crosswalk is a grocery store. So we know that this is a place that's frequently used. And then in the fall of 2024, this picture was taken from a similar location under the highway. We can now see that there are pedestrian signals, a traffic light, which is not actually pictured, but it's above the crosswalk a little bit further down the road. And then there's a combination of different pedestrian safety elements present that can prevent future fatal crashes and serious injuries. We also know that this road was also channelized. So in the previous slide, I'll just go back to it super quick. We don't really have any sort of demarcation of where cars should be going. So it's really up to the driver to decide how they're driving in this space, which can result in swerving. So as a result of that, when they actually implemented change, the road was channelized and it created two specific lanes. So that now prevents the swerving movements and mitigates some of that issue. Also, in this update or the redesign of this crosswalk, we see a raised intersection. So that tells the drivers or alerts the drivers that they should be going a little bit slower. And if they are moving fast through this intersection, they will feel it in their vehicle. Another tool that I want to share with y'all is the WalkMass database. So the Walk Audit database is a public database that compiles many walk audits conducted not only by Walk Massachusetts, but other municipalities and residents, offering valuable insights into challenges and solutions across the state. The goal is to empower communities to take steps towards safer and more walkable streets. So as of right now, we have 66 audits and counting. You're able to sort by municipality and year, and it includes walk audit reports. So walk audit reports are summaries of key findings that sometimes include recommendations, challenges that then you can leverage in different planning processes. So when I mentioned defining a purpose, if you want to summarize your findings, you can share them through comment letters, or you can put something a bit more comprehensive together, which is a walk audit report where you're including pictures and specific recommendations of specific sites to then use in your advocacy in your community. So this is what the website is walkmass.org/walk-audits. It'll show you this sort of abbreviated version of our database. But if you click on the bottom left corner where it says view the database in Google Sheets, it'll bring you to a different screen. So what's in the database? For every walk audit, the database includes a summary of findings. So that's key observations and challenges identified in each audit, recommendations, long and short-term strategies to improve walkability, and then themes. So there are common focuses such as traffic calming, bike or bus access, and age-friendly features. You'll be able to find details about specific streets and intersections evaluated, along with links to the full reports for further information. And again, we welcome other municipalities, planning agencies, and/or resident advocates to submit their walk audit reports into the centralized database. So I mentioned clicking on that hyperlink there that will take you to the Google Sheet. This is what it looks like. So you can see on the left, there is cities and towns, the year that it was conducted. You'll be able to read a brief summary, some of the long-term recommendations, the short-term recommendations, the streets that were audited, and then the themes. There's one other column that's not pictured here, but it includes who conducted the walk audit. So by going to this, you'll be able to see a more comprehensive view of the conducted walk audits. You can find audits based on those themes. And hopefully this can provide some inspiration, right? If you're just trying to get started with a walk audit and might not know how to structure your findings, we hope that this serves as a sort of platform for you to be able to draw some inspiration.
Hey,
So
Jeremy,
next,
before you go on, just a quick question.
yeah.
Folks, I've been putting the links in the chat, and folks are starting to go to the site. If folks are aware of walk audits that were done in their community, say in the past, is that something that they can still add to the sheets here?
Yeah, so if they've conducted a walk audit in the past and they want to share their findings, I would recommend emailing contact us at walkmass.org. And you can just sort of include a PDF of your walk audit findings. It takes a moment for us to sort of go through it and just add it onto our database, but you're able to submit those.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, if questions come, I don't have my webinar chat open, but Antron, if there's a question that comes up that I'm missing, please let me know. So with that, I'll move on to building your walk audit team. So so building your walk audit team is super important. I think in this next slide, I'll show you a picture that was from a shared spaces walk audit where we had Brendan, our executive director, participate. We have folks that represent different organizations, bike and pedestrian advocates, members of government, and participants that focus on accessibility. You can see that members of this walk audits have different abilities. Some are using white canes, others might have limited visibility. Others are using mobility assistive devices like motorized wheelchairs, and others are walking. The diversity of perspective is useful in identifying successes and challenges along your walk audit. We also, in this picture, is present the MBTA, the Boston Center for Independent Living, the Disability Commissioner for the City of Boston, and also a reporter. All of these folks provide different lenses in the walk audit experience. So something I also want to point out that we can't necessarily tell from just looking at this photo are the languages spoken. So at WalkMass, we're committed to working in the communities that need support the most. This might mean bridging linguistic gaps. It's worth considering what other linguistic groups may have ideas and solutions to contributing to your walk audit process. And just a little aside here. So this is the corner, I believe, of Mass and Tremont Street. And prior to engaging in the walk audit or departing, the folks there talked to the owners of this neighborhood market or the folks that work there, and they were asking about concerns getting around the area. And folks there were happy to share those experiences. So recall when you're coming up with your route that it might be worth inviting some of the folks the small businesses or schools that are along your walk audit route. So one of the concerns of this market that they mentioned is the loading zone. So this is a very like highly trafficked area, not only by pedestrians, but also cars, and you have cyclists. So those are concerns that, as a walk audit participant, as a community member, you might not necessarily know unless you're working at this market. So moving on to inviting stakeholders, it's worth inviting any of folks that are along your route. So those might be schools, park or friend groups, faith-based institutions, small businesses again, and local elected officials. Local elected officials, they can turn into supporters for the changes you'd like to see in your community. And note that the design of the process can be exclusionary. So consider timing, the language proficiency needed to participate, and other things like childcare. So consider the day and time of the walk audit. Are you providing food or asking people to give up their dinner time? Are you offering childcare or ensuring that people know that this is a family-friendly event? Also, is interpretation being made available for those with limited English proficiency? I think this provides an opportunity to collaborate with community anchors. So community anchors could be librarians, nonprofits, or just residents that have a strong presence in your community. So another question to ask yourself when pulling together a walk audit team is, do the participants of your walk audit reflect the racial and socioeconomic makeup of the community? If not, it might be worth thinking about how you can make some targeted outreach to make sure that those demographics and those communities are participating in this process. Lastly, I would say consider your group size. Does it make sense to split up into small groups to ensure that individuals have the opportunity to share their observations and suggestions with the larger group? There have been instances where WalkMass has led walk audits where we have up to like 40 or 50 people, and that can become challenging. Just hearing, you might be walking along routes that are very busy. There's tons of like highway traffic or road traffic that makes it challenging to hear. So if you're having an individual speak at a certain intersection, consider, depending on the size and the capacity of your group, splitting up into two groups. And if possible, if you have a portable audio system, right, so like a speaker and a microphone, that might also help with accessibility. Some folks might be hard of hearing or just might not be able to hear because of what I mentioned, which are, the vehicles speeding by, any sort of highway traffic, or just the busyness of being in a city. So now we'll move on to recording your observations. So I'll be providing an overview of some of the tools that you might consider bringing when going on your walk audit. So when conducting your walk audits, it's important, or I think I would say working in groups is ideal. You're able to think about different ages, abilities, etc. So what you're seeing here on this picture is a woman using a white cane here. So for some folks with limited vision, they rely on the consistency of a route that they're familiar with. Impediments such as a missing brick, construction, or something else may throw off their route, forcing them into unfamiliar territory, which might put them at risk. This experience is different for folks with wheelchairs who might have their usual ramps impeded by flooding, snow, debris, or anything else. So for folks with limited vision, having a pay system allows them to create a shared experience by having them share how they navigate the route. So for example, someone with limited vision might not be able to traditionally write down their observations on a piece of paper, which is what we normally do. So having a, portable audio system where we're able to pause, hand over a mic, and have them reflect or share what their experience is like with the built environment is really useful. Something I also want to mention is that there is oftentimes a conversation on historic preservation. So we can see that the character of this street is brick, right? So they'll probably replace it with brick, but on the adjacent street or sidewalk, one section, they were able to preserve some of the character there. So they maintained a section of brick, but also created a fully accessible sidewalk by using, I believe it was concrete. So it's important to provide different opportunities or avenues for people with different abilities to be able to share what they're thinking throughout this walk audit process. Some of the tools that you can use to sort of jot down notes include AARP's Walk Audit Toolkit. So these are one of the resources that AARP has put together. It's really useful in assessing and reporting on the safety and walkability of a street, an intersection, or a neighborhood, and inspire needed change. So that's one way of documenting, and this is available online. So you're able to download this, I believe, for free. And if you're ever joining WalkMass on a walk audit, we have our own version of this as well. We call it a prompt sheet. Our prompt sheet asks you to consider various elements of the streetscape and the design. There are themes that we're asking folks to consider, including safety, comfort, destinations, and connections. This will typically get paired with a map in case individuals prefer a visual of the route. So people think differently, take notes differently. People just operate differently. We can't expect everyone to just sort of go on a route and just write down their notes in the 10 lines provided. So the goal is to provide different avenues for people to participate in this process and make their participation actually meaningful and move us a little bit closer towards change. So you can see how some of those questions are asking about the quality of materials, the smoothness, the angles, any sort of obstructions, comfort, all of those different things, which are important to consider when going on your walk audit. This is another tool that we like to recommend folks bring on their walk audits, and that would be a map. So this is a map that I created for the Moving Together conference last year in October. And you can clearly see there's an end and a start point, the direction in which you're moving. Maps are key components to conducting walk audits. Some maps may include more details than others. You should really be choosing what works best for you. Consider landmarks that may help orient walk audit participants. And because participants record data through different ways, such as myself, I prefer to use a map just because I'm able to jot down notes at specific intersections or sites along the route that can be improved. I would strongly recommend bringing clipboards and pens just to make this writing process easier so you're not trying to find a hard surface to write on. Another good thing to bring with you is a camera. So take action shots of people walking, cars speeding, things that work well. Capture the positive or really busy storefronts, good driver behavior, put together your resources. You can put together your resources using different photo sharing options. So this could be Facebook, Google Photos, or any other photo collecting software that makes it easier for your walk audit participants to share those. Typically, we wouldn't suggest bringing like a a professional camera. I think whatever is in your pocket, so like an iPhone or an Android phone, typically gets the job done, but you're able to capture some of the challenges like I did here during my walk audit in Chelsea. You can see on the left photo that the smooth sidewalk is not enough. Barely one person can sort of fit on that, so people are walking in the tree pits. Another instance of a challenge that I captured was on the right-hand photo where we have three people trying to get through a narrow sidewalk where there's construction, you have a bike lane, you have heavy traffic on the left-hand side. So it's important to capture some of the challenges, but I'd also say think about what's working well in your community, take a picture of it so that when change does come to your community, it doesn't get lost and hopefully it can be replicated. There's a precedent that you can point to. And when it comes to compiling your photos, we at WalkMass use Google Photos. Whoever might be leading or organizing the walk audit can share a link to a Google folder or drive, allowing participants to share their photos with the rest of the group. So this is a walk audit that we had in the Montella neighborhood, and this is a compilation of participant photos. This is what it'll typically look like, and if someone decides they want to work on a walk audit report, they're able to easily access the photos and just pull them and plug them into a walk audit report and generate recommendations from that. Another tool that might be useful is a handheld speed detector and thermometer. So the picture on the left is the handheld thermometer. We conducted a walk audit in July of 2023 in Worcester, and there was a clear difference in temperature between the shaded area of the route and the non-shaded area. There was a 15-ish, 15-degree-ish difference in a matter of feet that can really affect the experience of those trying to move throughout the area. The photo on the right hand is a handheld speed detector, which allows you to measure the speed of a moving vehicle. You can see that the speed limit sign is posted at 35 miles per hour. However, the incoming vehicles are moving much faster than that. This street is Roosevelt Ave, and it's currently designed to encourage speeding on it, making it uncomfortable for pedestrians and other road users, such as cyclists. So you can see that it says 35 miles per hour is the speed limit. However, 46 is what this incoming, what looks like a van, is moving. So these are nice to haves. I wouldn't say that you necessarily need them for your walk audit. WalkMass, because we conduct tons of walk audits, it just makes sense that we have these to prove the point that, maybe some communities don't have the shade that they need to make walking comfortable or accessible for folks. And the same thing is true with the handheld speed detector. If we know that speeding is common, we're able to verify that by using these handheld speed detectors. Another nice to have, I would say, is an interpretation kit. So interpretation kits can be useful in providing simultaneous interpretation during a walk audit. So essentially, the way that this works is there is a receiver, an interpreter will be speaking into it as an English speaker is speaking, and the interpreter will translate into Spanish. It may not be necessary depending on the size of your group. So if you're, let's say, a group of 5 as opposed to a group of 20, and you might be interpreting for just one person, you might not need to invest in this level of technology. Figure out what, assess and figure out what works best for you. But just know that providing interpretation can create equitable access for folks to be able to participate in your walk audit. As a native speaker who works with many monolingual Spanish speakers, language access has been crucial to ensure that all members of communities are meaningfully included. Know that these interpretation kits can be expensive, but can be worth the investment if you know that you'll be needing interpretation for your walk audits or public meetings. And yeah, we at WalkMass are committed to bridging linguistic barriers, and we've invested in an interpretation kit. We know that these might not always be accessible, but it's worth reaching out to municipal contacts or other anchoring institutions such as nonprofits and asking to borrow them. Some of them are more than willing to help support with language access. And with that, I hope that some of those tools and strategies might be useful in encouraging you to lead a walk audit in your community. This is a picture of a walk audit that we did in Roosevelt Ave in Springfield in 2023. Just want to highlight some of the upcoming webinars that we have. So on August 14th, there will be one on advocacy. And on August 9th, there will be one on community health. So you can visit walkmass.org for more resources and information. Thank you again. And my name is Johnny Gomez Pereira, and I work for WalkMass.
Thank you so much, Johnny. This is a lot of wonderful information, very helpful, especially thinking about the tools. One being inclusive, taking the pictures, I think is one of the most important ones that sometimes we don't think about. But really capturing the audit itself, but also that database was a great resource. Not a question that came up, but when you think about your MassDOT roads, thinking about more of our rural communities and doing audits there. Any special tips or things to think about that folks should keep in mind?
I would say check out the crash portal. If you know that there are fatalities or crashes that are happening in rural communities and you're looking for some quantitative sort of evidence of that, the crash portal is a good way to sort of leverage that. Let's say I don't know, you're at a maybe not council meeting to select board. I don't know what the
Yeah,
level, the structure of government is out there because I live
yeah,
in the city. But having those numbers, pairing that with your walk audit report and your findings, I think can really make a compelling argument. So if you're able, I think it goes back maybe a decade or so.
yeah,
So you're able to look at historical data, and if there's, unfortunately, what happens is a crash happens, either a life is lost, and that is what compels people to create change in their community. If you're able to get ahead of that and
yeah.
pull that data and conduct your own walk audit, I think you have a really compelling case.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then one last thing, the Walk Mass Network meetings is, I believe that's the third Wednesday. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so I believe it is the third Wednesday of every month. We have our Walk Mass Network meeting. So it's an opportunity for municipal governments, residents, anyone really who's interested in learning about um, pedestrian safety or different elements of the built environment to join. So those are on the third Wednesdays of every month. And last week or last month, we had a professor from California presenting on autonomous vehicles on our roads. So I think the topic varies. I helped organize one on food access for folks, right? Like accessibility between transportation and food access. The topic really does vary. We welcome different sort of like experts or anyone who is interested in sharing a topic to sort of do that. But it really is a really nice opportunity for people who are interested in the various intersections of pedestrian safety and transportation to connect with other advocates in the region.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this, Johnny. Thank you for all the tools, resources, and thank you all for joining us at the program today.